Hi guys, today this one is going to be a little bit more on the comorbidity between sex, porn addiction, and narcissism. There is a huge link. Most narcissists, or many narcissists, are also addicted to pornography, and a lot of them are sex addicts. You see that a lot. It's all over the forums. A lot of survivors talk about it. I kind of look at it this way. Narcissism is an intimacy disorder, right? And sex or physical, intimacy, that's a part of intimacy, or can be, right? It's very frightening for narcissists to be emotionally and physically intimate with another human being, right? So it makes perfect sense that they would be addicted to porn or sex or just masturbation, because that doesn't require them to be emotionally connected to another human being. It doesn't require emotional intimacy. If you're in a long-term relationship with somebody, that sort of sex that you're having, that better, you better start developing some emotional intimacy. Like, that's normal, right? That's totally normal. But with narcissists, they avoid that at all costs. So they really can't do sort of long-term physically connected relationship in general. Usually they can't, and it's definitely not emotional. So they often will have sex with other people. They will have, they'll be addicted to porn. They'll go to massage parlors, or they will hire prostitutes. They sometimes will go on to same-sex dating sites, because for them, sex is all about gaining narcissistic supply. It's all about, getting the flattery and validation, rather than for the, most people, which they desire a, spiritual, physical, mental, emotional connection, right? That's what most people sort of experience or want out of, like lovemaking. But narcissists, like in general, don't do that. So you might see that if you're with a cerebral narcissist, they usually will go through very long periods where there's no physical intimacy with them. They usually will withhold sex as a way to make you feel bad, hurt your self-esteem, and as a way to control you, right? For them, sex is all about power and supply or validation, right? And they use it to control. Because these people are, manipulators of others' emotions. They're sort of dead inside in terms of their emotional landscape, but they are adept at manipulating other people's emotions, right? And so they use a lot of withholding. If you're in a relationship with somebody who's withholding sex, they're probably a narcissist, and unless they've had a conversation with you about, why they're withholding sex. They don't feel well, they could have an illness, they could have some dysfunctional issues, whatever. But I mean, not everyone who withholds sex is a narcissist, but it's definitely one of their patterns. And then often, or you can also see this, you can see a sex addicted narcissist that will put their partner in all sorts of they'll ask their partner to do all sorts of things that are sort of make their partner uncomfortable sexually. It could be very demeaning things. It could be things that just aren't comfortable, right? So you can see that a lot where, they may even want, they may be hypersexualized, right? So they're constantly wanting their partner to have sex with them, but it's very much like a masturbatory tool. So, it can kind of go both ways. It can be like a total starvation of physical intimacy, or it can be, asking no physical, like no intimacy, but wanting sex with their partner all the time that's degrading or demeaning or doesn't feel good. Kind of could go either way, actually. And again, once again, think about it. It's an intimacy disorder. So they do not want to have, what most people want from sex, which is connectedness, reciprocity, this beautiful sort of, melding of our, of your emotional life and your physical life. And it's an expression of love and connectedness and joy. Like, that's what a lot of people are looking for with sex, but not with narcissists. And again, they often need to have like multiple partners, because they need multiple sources of supply. They need it. And that's what they're getting. They're getting validation from sex, really. It's just another way to get it. Let me think of what else to mention about this. Yeah, so you do see this a lot. There are definitely a lot of sex and porn addicted narcissists. Sometimes you can have sex and porn addicts that are not narcissists. one way to sort of differentiate the two is, are they willing to acknowledge it, and are they getting some help for it? Are they trying to stop? Do they understand its impact on their partner? Do they have empathy about that impact? Narcissists don't really have empathy about how, living in sort of a sexless marriage would be for their partner, or for them to be cheating and, using pornography and lying about it, like any of that. They just don't really have any empathy, guilt, or remorse about it. So if they're narcissists, they tend to be more on that spectrum where they don't really have any feelings about it. They're just, the only problem they have is if they get caught, right? So that's really the issue with narcissists. But I hope this makes sense. I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but yes, there's a huge connection between porn addiction, sex addiction, and narcissism. You do see them, very linked together. A lot of narcissists have that comorbidity. Sometimes narcissists also have the comorbidity of substance, drug, or alcohol addiction. That's pretty common as well. But again, once they get clean or sober, once they've gotten in remission for their sex and porn addiction, like, what do you have left? Do you still have this profoundly selfish person that has no empathy? Or do they get clean and sober and their heart opens up and they get in touch with their empathy and they start caring about other people and loving other people? If so, they're probably not a narcissist. But often, narcissists will even find recovery from drugs, alcohol, sex, and porn, and then they still have those sort of core issues of that low level or no empathy and, profound selfishness and self-absorption. But even then, I think there's some healing that can be found for narcissists if they are willing to take a look at themselves and take some personal responsibility and do the work that's required to change. I know this differs from a lot of psychologists that you'll hear because part of the structure of the narcissistic personality disorder, if they have full-blown NPD, is they don't think there's anything wrong with them. They think that they think they're perfect. They don't think that they're the issue. They think it's all the rest of the world. Like, that's the issue, right? So that inability to self-reflect and see themselves as they really are, and take and recognize that cheating and lying and gaslighting and torturing people is actually a problem. They don't really see it as a problem, like, unless they get caught, because again, everything is self-referential. Like, everything is about just them. They can't really see out of their own little world, which is like it's all about them. So if you're with a narcissist, you probably experienced finding out that they had a double sex life. You may have had a pretty dismal sex life with them, because even if in the cases, a lot of times the sex can be technically very good, right? Technically it can be very, very good, because they can be all about performing, right? So they'll please their partner, but that is performative. That's so that they can get validation, and they think of themselves as like the greatest lover in the world, right? So sometimes you'll see narcissists sort of operate that way, where they can be very technically good at sex, but if you notice, usually the sex is very robotic. It is lacking in emotion. It is very much, you may never hear the words like, I love you, or you're so sexy, or anything like that. You may just never hear that. Like, they're very, they can be very nonverbal and non-emotional. So the sex is, again, robotic, non-emotional. It can be very cold. It can leave you with like a cold feeling. If any of these things are happening in your relationship, even if the sex is technically good, if it leaves you feeling like cold and it's very disconnected, man, is that something to look for. That is a huge red flag. And if you're with somebody who always uses a condom and you've been with them for a decade or 15 years or something like that, that is also another red flag of actually of sex addiction. So, or it can be. I read about that in some of the forums. So hopefully this is helpful for you, and just a little bit trying to educate people on this. If you're with a narcissist, you're trying to figure it out, you don't know if you want to stay or go, honestly, these people don't change. So unless you're okay with how it is, then you might want to figure out an exit strategy. And I should say, most of the time they don't change. There are a few narcissists out there who have gotten a diagnosis and they are doing the work to try to better themselves as human beings and try to get into touch with their empathy. And I think usually the reason they don't have any empathy is because there was an egregious lack of empathy shown to them, at some point in their early childhood development. Not always. Sometimes they were put on a pedestal. They were given adulation and praise and, sort of performance-based approval instead of unconditional love. So that could also be a factor here. But in general, it's really hard for narcissists to change. They usually do not go to therapy or seek any help. So unfortunately, it's probably not going to be a good deal for you if you're a neurotypical or an empath or a codependent that's in a relationship with somebody who's that profoundly self-centered and lacking in empathy. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you're out there thriving. I hope you're spending time with friends, exercising, eating good food, nourishing your body, your soul, your mind, praying, meditating, and being just a wonderfully happy, thriving existence. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.